I'm going to sit down. I'm going to hand over first to Gilad.
All right. Do I have to stand?
No.
No. And can you hear me without a microphone? Yeah, there is a microphone, so you can. It is very interesting, your introduction, because we clearly see that Jews are concerned with issues to do with their identity. However, it is completely obvious that they are not very happy when other people start to ask questions to do with their identity or with their history. In fact, I think the Jews are the only people or ideological collective that doesn't allow anyone else to deal with their history, which is very unusual. It is true that I'm a self-hater. And when I'm labeled as a self-hater, I usually tend to correct those who accuse me of being a self-hater, that I'm actually a proud self-hater. I think that self-hating is the most refined moment in Jewish existence. I think that some great people, the greatest humanists that out of Jewish people were profound self-haters. We can think of Christ.
Excuse me, Gilad.
Yeah.
This tape recorder is on pause. Whose is it? This one here is on pause.
One on pause?
It's not recording.
You reckon? I don't know.
It looks like it. Sorry. Is that recording or not?
That's recording.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'm not going to repeat myself. Yeah.
Okay.
When you say you're a
No, we're not.
Just a
Yeah.
moment. We'll have
Yeah.
questions afterwards. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm a proud self-hater, and I see myself as a follower of some great humanists, Jewish humanists such as Christ, Spinoza, and even Marx. I'm not a Marxist, but I have some respect to Marx. However, there is a very big question. Why is it the Jews are so horrified by the transformation of one Jew into a self-hater? It is very concerning. We saw them downstairs. They were horrified. Why they are so horrified by me hating myself? Quite a strange reaction. The answer is very simple. Is very simple. Me hating myself reflects on their possible disapproval of their entire agenda. They don't like themselves as much as they claim to. And self-haters expose something deeply morbid within the Jewish ideological collective. And this is indeed a problem, and this is why I wrote my book now, by the way. I'm like an ordinary human being. I'm oscillating. Most of the time I'm a self-hater, but sometimes I've just become an ex-Jew. You cannot be both ex-Jew and a self-hater. You either. So this freaks them completely, because they also want to be ex-Jews. However, I will try to explain to you what I try to do in this book. I'll try to be short. The book is obviously slightly deeper, so if you are not convinced by my agenda, you can still buy the book. I believe that considering the domination of Zionists in the media, considering the hegemony of Jewish anti-Zionists, what we start to call now anti-Zionist Zionists, within our discourse, considering the assertive the intensive and assertive lobbies that dominates our politics, that are basically Israeli and Jewish lobbies, it is our duty to address questions to do with Jewish identity. Moreover, Israel is the Jewish state. Israel dropped bombs on Palestinian innocent civilians from airplanes decorated with Jewish symbols. It is essential. It is our duty to ask, what do you mean by your Jewishness? And I started kind of 10, 12 years ago to look into this issue. I think that one of the first texts that inspired me at the time was Israel Shahak, the study of the Talmud. It was indeed a very inspiring text. It was for me, Oren is an ex-Israeli, and we were raised more or less in similar condition, and we were not expert on the Talmud. We didn't really learn the Talmud in Israel. So as much as Israel Shahak was very interesting for me, it fell short of explaining to me why, in spite of the Talmud goy-hating context, we were still, as secular being, followed kind of text that we really didn't follow. We didn't really understand. We were not familiar with. Shahak is a very important text, but it was very crucial for me to understand how this Talmud goy-hating preaching was infiltrated into the secular Jewish identity. Israel is not a religious state. So Shahak fails to provide the necessary answers. Now, Shahak was very, very popular amongst Jewish leftists for the obvious reasons, because Shahak suggests that something is slightly dodgy with the Jewish religion. But it fails to explain what is so wrong within Jewish secular discourse. I realized then that actually nobody dares dealing with Jewish secular discourse. I thought that this may become my task, because I started to ask myself, what happens to the Jew once you drop God? What you're left with? I could ask a few of the Jews who were picketing here today, why do you call yourself Jews? It is a big question. You don't believe in God, you don't follow Jewish religion, so what is it? Because you eat gefilte fish once a year? Is it the matzah balls? Is it the chicken soup? What makes you into a Jew? And why do you operate politically, for instance, in this movement, in racially segregated Jewish cells? This is a big question. I then continued to look into those issues, and at a certain stage, I was more and more devastated by the Israeli lobby. It was very clear to me already in 2003 that the war in Iraq was, in fact, an Israeli war, fought by proxy, by British and American soldiers. It was very clear to me that the perpetrators of this, the architects of this war, were Wolfowitz and Libby, already in the 90s, in 94. It is called the Wolfowitz document. And I asked myself, is it a coincidence that when Britain was taken into an illegal war, it was Lord Levi who was number one fundraiser for that criminal government? Is it a coincidence that Lord Goldsmith gave the green light? It may be a coincidence, but I wasn't so sure. And I started to look into it. And I found out a lot of website where, website and papers where Jewish politicians in America and in Britain were praising their power for managing to manipulate the entire American administration. And I must admit that I realized then that the debate whether the protocols of the Elders of Zion is genuine text or not is actually a spin. It is there to divert the attention from the reality in which we were living.
3 minutes.
I was called an anti-Semite at the time, but it was very clear to me that something crucial, that I was tapping into something crucial. 2006, I think, both James Petras, Mearsheimer, Professor John Mearsheimer, and Walt produced a very extensive, 2 different extensive studies of the issue about the Israeli lobby. It is now an established fact. However, I try to take Walt, Mearsheimer, and Petra's study one step further. It is very clear that they control our political system, but I ask one question: why do they try to control it? Is it something cultural? Yes, there is cultural teaching. There is lobbying, cultural teaching that leads to what? Understanding of lobbying, how to operate lobbies. It is in the Bible. It is in the Bible, and it's actually books that are familiar to every secular Jew. I'm talking, for instance, about Purim. This history where Jews really didn't like themselves for living in the diaspora, for being non-productive, for being capitalist, and so on. They said, we are going to change. They went to Palestine. They had a dream to build an authentic society, and look where we are now. They are surrounded by ghetto walls, and the walls are bigger than the biggest ghetto walls in the entire Jewish history. And they are armed to the teeth with nuclear bombs, and they are threatening the entire planet, and they can bring all of us down. And this is at the end of a project that was there to save the Jew from Jewishness. It is not a coincidence that Zionism fell. And in my book, I try to understand why it happened. And so far, I think that just by the reaction and the opposition that I receive, I think that I'm definitely tapping into something crucial. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Almost a time, very